were just saying it's so great to be here and talk one-on-one with your constituents. I don't know if you saw the protesters outside. I know something we've been hearing for a long time is a lot of people want to have more of an open town hall type of situation with you, different from these types of situations where it's just select members. Are there any plans for you to have those open town halls for anyone to come and voice their opinions with you?
So people voice their opinions at me or with me all the time. How I choose to do it is the Southern Minnesota way. Conversations like we just had today, very civil. Did everyone in this room agree on everything? No, and that's okay. That's the Minnesota that I grew up in. I didn't grow up in a Minnesota where the plan was to holler and scream at your elected official, not really wanting to listen, but just to holler. There's no productivity in that. We've had multiple teletown halls, and it's a way for people, I think, to really just kind of hear some depth about what's going on. We've taken questions. A gentleman that works at the Austin Chamber here, just on his first day of work, was telling us that he called into our teletown hall and he asked a question. And so it's been a way for us to communicate. But I've been traveling all over the district in the last few weeks, really since I got elected. And I always use the opportunities just to have, good Southern Minnesota conversations. And again, it's not just with people that agree with me or maybe like what's going on. It's with all areas of issues. And so, in regards to, their demands of what they want, I find it a little disingenuous when the Democrat Party says they're hosting a town hall and they want me to come. That seems very political and very motivated for politics and not good policy and a good Southern Minnesota conversation.
So is that your primary concern then, is just that more open town hall type of thing? It wouldn't stay a civil conversation? Well,
just watch the news. It hasn't. It hasn't. All over this country it hasn't. And that's the goal. That, some people have the goal for that. I was at a meeting the other day that was shut down because people wanted to holler, and they said, we want to have a conversation. But they kept hollering, and they kept, quite frankly, not using the best of language, and it's just not productive. Would we want our kids to communicate and solve problems with each other acting that way? Or would we want it to be more like what we just did today? An opportunity for us to have a conversation with each other. Everyone had a chance to ask a question if they wanted to. We talked about things in detail and heard people's opinions. That's the healthy way to move our country forward.
Tariffs, that was something that was brought up a lot, and you kind of mentioned how those trade deals have been bringing benefits to farmers, but we've also heard from some folks about how it's also hurting a lot of our small business, speak with small business owners today, and how they have a lot of imports from Canada or other countries, and these tariffs are really causing them to struggle. So what can be done to help them?
Yeah, so there's no doubt about it that the uncertainty has stalled certain areas of potential productivity, and we need to I say quite often, and I've heard this actually being told to me by a lot of small businesses all throughout the district, that they feel like they're at the economic starting gate. The gate's been open, and they just want to run the race. And so the uncertainties over the last 6 months with the tariffs and the unknowns of where new trade and new opportunities will happen has been a little challenging. But if you look at just the last few weeks, when we have new trade deals now, new tariff agreements with Japan, Indonesia, the EU, the UK, the Philippines. These are new markets, new opportunities. In some cases, we're going to be selling things to those countries we've never sold before. U.S. grown rice is going to go to Japan. $750 billion a year of new ethanol sales to the EU. These are all new markets, new opportunities. And so, I understand it's been a challenging, uncertain first 6 months in regards to the tariff and the trade talks. But it is high time that our country gets back to the table and establishes new trade deals. We have had one meaningful trade deal in the last 20 years, USMCA, the Canada-Mexico trade deal. While other countries, quite frankly, some adversaries, have 20, 30, 40 new trade deals in the last 20 years. So countries are actively trading and creating new partnerships. We have been on the sidelines, and we felt it here at home. We're at a $50 billion ag deficit in trade in our country. We're bringing in $50 billion more of ag products from other countries than we are selling out to the world. It's hard for people to believe in southern Minnesota, where we have more pigs than people. We take pride in making great bacon. We take pride in the corn and soybeans that we grow in our dairy, our beef cattle. And so we have to change the dynamics. And we have felt it at the market from an agriculture perspective. And so the tariff talks are the economic lever that create new trade deals.
So you do see that this is going to help those prices eventually are going to start to come down?
That is the goal of all of this. That is the goal of all of this.
Yeah. And kind of jumping off that, I know like you have mentioned with John Deere, you're like, there's never a time where I'm paying less.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that with pretty much everything. Like just
Yeah.
go to the grocery store. Families are being shocked by these high prices. What can we do about that, the overall state of the economy?
Yeah, so we're still in that post-COVID recovery, and I know it's, we'd like to, in government and politics, put a flag in the ground and say, we've achieved this, let's move on. Well, the reality is it's been hard to move on. The inputs and the inflation that we suffered through COVID, the disruption in the supply chain, there is still settling that's happening in the economy. We've seen some positive signs, some staples like wholesale eggs, that has gone down. We have seen the price at the pump that has remained steady to trending down. And that all, it takes a little time. You can't just turn the key on and say, all right, now we're cutting the cost and everyone will be fine again. But we're starting to see signs of it. But I mean, there's a lot more work to do. We have to get a better handle on inflation. We have to get, hopefully the Fed moves on some interest rates so we can start to see some house ownership opportunities, young families getting into new homes, maybe families that have been in a home and were blessed to get a 2.5% loan on a 30-year fixed mortgage. What's the incentives to create more movement in the housing market? That will be good for our rural communities.
Speaking of our rural communities, you're a farmer. A lot of your area is rural. I mean, we heard, the one gentleman today was talking about how Austin here is so fortunate to have Hormel, but a lot of other rural communities don't have that. And, we're seeing a lot of them really rely on federal funding in order to do things like important infrastructure projects or other programs that they have. And they're concerned with that funding being cut and they're not sure what to do. So how can they reconcile with?
We have to be very, again, in detail of what specific programs are they worried about, and let's get to the root of it. If we actually are talking about cuts, or is it the fear of cuts? Because if you look at some of the investments that we've made in the reconciliation bill, specifically around ag and ag trade, we've doubled the funding. We increased funding for risk management tools in agriculture like crop insurance. We have invested more in conservation programs in the reconciliation bill. And so there has been very strategic investments that we have passed through Congress to really kind of get the economy jump-started and going again. But there is that short-term concern. We heard it today, and I think I will definitely bring this back to Congress in regards to, at the end of the last Congress, there was a bill that was passed right at the end of December that was a disaster aid program for agriculture in rural America. It was over $20 billion, and we might need to revisit if there is a conversation that needs to be had about another bill like that in the short term. But again, once we can start seeing more cargo ships leave our ports, we can start becoming an ag surplus trading country again. We will see that at the price points. That will be very beneficial for rural Minnesota.
We've also seen a lot of cuts federally with education. And personally, I go to a lot of school board meetings, and I'm hearing really districts all across southern Minnesota, across the whole state, are really struggling when it comes to funding right now. And losing that federal funding is putting them to even more of a panic. So how can we help fund our students to get the best education?
The whole intention of anything from the federal government is to get that money back to the students in the local communities as quick and as efficient as possible. And if there's layers of bureaucracy that we can eliminate, if there's mandates that we can eliminate. I just had lunch with the superintendent from a school district right down the road, and he said that, even with all the increases, or even if you were to increase dollars to education, the mandates cripple us. The state of Minnesota has been horrible in the last few years in regards to the new mandates that they've put on our local school districts. And you can talk to any superintendent in the area, any school board member, and they will tell you that no amount of increased funding is able to keep up with the new mandates that have been put on them. And what's sad about this, really at the heart of it, is that this isn't putting more teachers in front of our kids. This is creating more levels of, more obstacles, more bureaucracy, more headaches that really prevent our great, amazing local school districts doing what we know that they can do best. And so from the federal level, and it is an interesting conversation because the state is so highly and heavily involved in our local education. So I think a lot of the frustrations that I have heard is really state-driven. From the federal level, it's my goal to get the money out of DC and back to our local school districts as quick and as efficient as possible, and let our local communities decide what's best for their local communities.
Another thing that you touched on was cuts to Medicaid and SNAP, and you talked about how, this is being done to just sort of prevent that fraud and that wasteful overspending, but we have seen people here at home that are just hardworking families. They're just trying to feed their children, and they're seeing that their benefits are being cut, and they're really struggling with this. How can we help them?
I would say that's not necessarily true, because, if you look at the bill and the specific language that we have in the reconciliation bill, when it comes to Medicaid or it comes to SNAP, we're very specific about, women with children. We're very specific about people with disabilities not being cut with any of the changes that we've made. We've really focused on making sure that program can be as efficient and as effective as possible to help our neighbors in need. And, the population that gets talked about, but really not with detail, it's the able-bodied single adult without dependent. And it's about the work requirements. We did nothing with the work requirements. They stay the same today as they were yesterday. We're just saying that if you are in that population of an able-bodied single adult without dependents, the work requirements will go until the age of 64. And that's 20 hours a week. 20 hours a week could be a job, it could be looking for a job, it could be volunteering in your community. That's what it is today, and that's what it was yesterday. We've just raised the age limit. I think most people in southern Minnesota would say they plan on working until they're about 64. But moreover, if you look at the integrity of the programs that are, really well intended, it's a southern Minnesota value. We will take care of our neighbors in need. We will give the shirt off our back to help our neighbors. But when you look at the state of Minnesota and the $1 billion of fraud, how is that helping our neighbors in need? And the answer is it's not. And it is stealing and wasting the precious resources of our state and federal government, throwing it into the wind, even though we have neighbors that we know need help. So there needs to be an adult in the room to have the conversation, to say, listen, are we just going to put our head in the sand and be content that we're blowing $1 billion in Minnesota to waste and to fraud? These people are criminals. They're breaking the law, and they're being prosecuted as we speak. I don't think it's this isn't a Republican or a Democrat issue. This should be a USA issue. We all should care about integrities in our government programs.
Another thing you touched on as well was about the need to secure the southern border, and we have seen that there has been a lot of crackdown with immigration and illegal immigration lately, and we've even had some ICE raids and stuff here within our communities, and I know that people have a lot of concern about that. We have seen that just with the way that people are being treated, making sure that the people being arrested are actually criminals, are illegal, not here legally. So how do we make sure that this is being done with the best intentions?
I sure hope people aren't questioning the intentions of our great law enforcement. I think ICE and Homeland Security works best when they really partner with our local communities. If you talk to your local police chief, if you talk to the officers in town or the sheriff's office in our county here, they will tell you they have a good pulse of the country. They have a good pulse of their backyard. And it's really important that we partner and that we allow partnerships with our local law enforcement to make sure that this is done right. There is no doubt about it that unmitigated disaster happened at our southern border. We had no border. And because of that, we saw a huge influx of drugs, sex trafficking, child trafficking, and it literally has affected our backyard. When you see the fentanyl death overdoses happening in communities like ours here, all across southern Minnesota, all across this country, and there's direct ties to the cartel in Mexico, they're not here because they're trying to live their American dream. They're here to do crime, to commit crime. And so it's really important that we're cleaning our streets up and we're making them safe. I think it's really, any American that believes and supports law and order should be happy that, the rule of the land, the law is being enforced. But I do think it works best when there is that local connection to make sure they understand the population and the community at large that they're coming in to work with.
How overall supportive are you of President Trump and the policies he's been implementing in his second term?
So in my adult lifetime, watching politics, now involved in it, I rarely see political parties, members of each party, that have made some very bold promises and actually have kept them. And so, I think a lot of people are probably surprised or amazed. If you think of the 5 or 6 things that President Trump was very clear on when he ran for election this last time, very clear on. He talked about no tax on tips. He talked about no tax on overtime. He talked about securing our border. He talked about creating new trade deals and new opportunities. He talked about reshoring and strengthening our manufacturing. Within the first 6 months, he has done all of that. That is all things that he has pushed. We have worked in Congress to negotiate, and we have put on his desk, and he has signed into law. You know, I think people sometimes either like him or don't like him because of his personality. I won't weigh in on that, but I'll just tell you that the results speak for themselves. I mean, I think he can safely say promises made, promises kept. And that's what we need right now. We need more adults in the room making the tough decisions that put our country in a better place to leave our country better for our kids, and he's doing it.